Ashley Massaro did not deserve to die. No one, in my opinion, death should not be wished upon to anyone. No one really deserves to die. People deserve consequences for their actions, but no one deserves to die. I also do not condone anyone taking their life, and anyone that contemplates that or, maybe has come close to doing it deserve to get the proper help they need to make sure that they do not have the desires or the urges to do such a thing to themselves. With that being said, because of her choices, her poor choices, her lack of convictions, and her hypocrisy, Ashley Massaro did deserve her downfall. She joined WWE in 2005, won it off the Diva search. Admittedly, and really, this I don't believe was her fault because WWE should have given her the proper training. She was not that good of a wrestler. And, there are other ways to make it in WWE. You don't necessarily have to be a good wrestler just to make it in WWE or professional wrestling in general. She still did a lot of things during her WWE, most of which really were outside of WWE. Her performing in the Survivor show, all these other reality shows. She did Playboy and all this other modeling stuff. She was in music videos. And, I think a big reason why she stayed in WWE for as long as she did is because, she had a certain look, aesthetic. She was like, in a way, during the rise of alternative culture, she was an alt girl. And a lot of people were really into it. I was really into it too. So she found a little niche for herself, no doubt. And we've learned, over the years, as stories of her have come out and come to light, that even though her career in WWE seemed like a pretty nice ride, things were not all very nice and good behind the scenes for her. We know that she had sustained multiple head injuries, which affected her later in life. Even brought on a lawsuit to WWE regarding this. And even there was an incident, evidently in 2005, where she was sexually assaulted in Kuwait during one of WWE's Tribute to the Troops events. I also read that when she had come to WWE about this, she had come to Stephanie McMahon initially, who was at first very supportive and said she was going to, stand up for her, but when it came time to bring it to WWE management, Stephanie sort of turned on her, downplayed the whole situation, and ultimately swept it under the rug for the sake of not, muddying the waters when it came to WWE's relationship with, the military and the troops in the Middle East. And of course, all these things I just mentioned, she didn't really deserve any of them. She should have not experienced them. Nobody should have to experience things like that. However, I also feel like partially due to the choices she made, those things happening to her were brought on to her by herself. A lot of people who critique Janelle Grant, will say that, yeah, Vince did horrible things to her and she shouldn't have gone through what she went through, but at the end of the day, she prostituted herself and willingly put herself in those situations she was put in, all in the name of getting money and climbing the corporate ladder within the WWE. And I feel like the same could be applied here. The sexual assault that I just talked about, that happened back in '05, evidently, when Ashley first started. And she still spent, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, overall, spent 4 years in the company in spite of all this, and even, used her WWE fame to catapult her into other things that I had mentioned, like Survivor, Playboy, so on and so forth. So, it is a little bit hard to feel sympathy for somebody who experienced such horrible things like head injuries and sexual assault. And I even read that WWE concealed information about injuries, going back to that. Somebody who experienced all those things still continued to work for WWE, and a very toxic environment and, didn't leave until it was absolutely necessary. I know she left in '08 because her daughter got sick and she had to take care of her, but let's say this, somebody's driving down an icy road, they start slipping, they careen into, a ditch, and, they get hurt and their car gets messed up. Can't blame them for driving on an icy road because, accidents happen. But let's say, they put their car in reverse, get out of the ditch, start driving back on the road, and put themselves in the same danger again. You can't really, at that point, it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of, do you really feel sorry for that person at that point that's knowingly putting themselves through that danger again and again? Like, knowingly going back to swim in shark infested waters. Maybe you didn't know the sharks were there when you started swimming, but then you get bit by a shark and then you dive right back in after the fact. That's where I'm coming from with and this. Yes, a lot of wrestlers have put themselves through emotional, mental, and physical hell for the sake of being a professional wrestler because they have a passion for that art form, for that career path, and they just want to make a name for themselves in that world because they just love it. But going back to her performance as a wrestler, I don't think this was the case with Ashley because if she really did have a passion for wrestling, she would have at least attempted to improve her in-ring work ability a little bit. But as I had mentioned before, the poor woman could not wrestle for a lick. And, I just feel like she really only did it because she wanted to be famous because, she involved herself in all these other side projects, all this modeling, TV shows, things of that nature. I think she really just wanted to be a celebrity, and, she had even filed a lawsuit against WWE in relation to the sexual assault and the injuries, but had later, backed down and withdrew from the suit and even wrote a letter of apology to WWE. So I guess when she found out she wasn't getting the bag, she just opted out and tried to repair the bridge that she had burned by doing that. Um, I, and as we all know, this story came out recently with her being at Jeffrey Epstein's island, and we don't know, I don't think we know all the details yet, but it is known in some ways she did work for or assist Jeffrey's madam, Ghislaine, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that well, Ghislaine Maxwell. And, if it is really the case that she had some involvement with assisting or in some way aiding the people that did perpetrate the horrible things that occurred on that island, then that really just kind of drives home the fact that, she's a hypocrite. She was a social climber, and everything she did was motivated to achieve fame, money, and status. Now, like I said, we don't know all the details, but all I'm saying is based on, her behavior, choices that she's made, I don't think Ashley Massaro, as sad as her life was and as sad as how it ended, was that good of a person and did kind of deserve her downfall, whether she, had made these choices willingly or subconsciously, or maybe she felt like she was trapped to make the choices that she did. I don't know. I was not inside of this woman's head, but sometimes in life when you make poor choices, you end up in situations like the ones that she ended up in, and maybe will meet an end similar to the one that she met. And of course, rest in peace to her. I kind of wish that, at this point, people would stop mentioning her name and stop bringing her up because I feel like at this point, the woman deserves to rest in peace. But at the same time, you reap what you sow. And it seems like Ashley, what she sowed in this world was not really